I would like to introduce our guest presenter, Jennifer Burns Katafigiotis. Jennifer has her BS in Marketing and International Business from Fairleigh Dickinson University. Her MS in Nutrition Education and Food Science from Montclair State University, where she won awards for her research on E. coli and microbial contamination detection methods. She currently is an adjunct faculty member at Montclair State University, as well as the Director of Nutrition Education at the Institute for Medical Weight Loss and Nutrition. She has been a featured expert on genetic profiles and weight loss and has worked in the field of bariatric medicine for more than 20 years, which I find remarkable because she's only 21. So I would like to introduce Jennifer Katafigiotis.
Thank you, Marty. And thank you, Robard, for having me here. So what we're going to talk about in my segment are SMART goals. And I'm going to put emphasis on being realistic. All right? That's something that in our practice we are extremely realistic. And it's something that has grown and developed as we see the needs of our patients changing. So, do you know what realistic means to your patients when it pertains to diet? Anybody? Is it a cost factor? Is it a time factor? Maybe they want to lose weight really fast, and of course they all do. Do you ask them? Do you ask them what's realistic? Do you actually listen to them? When I first started at this clinic, Dr. Joseph Lozito said to me, if you listen to your patients, if you let them talk, they will tell you exactly what's wrong with them. They will tell you exactly what they need. And then when you say it back to them, they're going to think you're brilliant. All right? And I always think of that. I always think of that because it is so true. And it does make us look brilliant. So, how do we work towards a weight loss program and goals that are realistic for their lifestyles? When I started there 5 years ago, we were like many practices where we would want people to commit to 6 weeks, 12 weeks of a program. We would give them a financial benefit by doing that. We would have a discount for them. And what was happening in the past 5 years or so? The economy tanked. And losing weight, getting healthy, going on a diet with somebody, with a clinic, was a luxury. And that was something that started to change the bottom line, really. And we weren't seeing as many patients. Insurance wasn't participating in any of the costs. So we had to do something. So I went back to what Dr. Joe said, and I started listening. More than I ever did, using my marketing hat more than anything else. So I was communicating with my patients in a way that I hadn't before. What we do at the Institute is we have patients come in for a free body composition analysis. I try to do as many of them as possible, as time will allow, because I get to start talking to my patients. And I call them my patients from the very beginning because I might see them now and I might not see them again for a year. They're still going to be my patients. So when they come in, they have a questionnaire to fill out, and I start going through it to find those key areas that I can get them talking about. Our patients end up feeling so comfortable with us that I might have a session with them where we don't talk about nutrition at all. Someone might come in, get on that scale, and say, oh my God, I never thought I would lose weight this week. Why didn't you think you'd lose weight? Something that just happened yesterday. Well, actually, my son was arrested. Okay, so you have to keep the face a little straight and say, well, okay, tell me about that. Well, tell me about that. She ended up eating. Haagen-Dazs was her best friend that night. And she had still lost weight. Now, of course, you don't want to encourage that, okay, you got lucky. You ate a pint of Haagen-Dazs and you still lost weight. But it gets them talking. The heaviest weight that these patients have is their guilt. And if you can get them talking about that and saying, okay, it happened. How did you handle that? You put it behind them. So, again, communication, being realistic. right? So, as I was going through my files and Marty had asked me to do a case study, what I realized was more often than not, I could have chosen almost any of my patients to talk about. Because we've been so flexible and changed things up a little bit. But Dennis has always popped into my mind. Whenever I think of patients, I think of Dennis. Dennis, when he came to me, was 61 years old. He came to me because I did a program at a local corporation for their health and wellness fair. And I got to present for an hour and a half, which was a great amount of time. And all I talked about was know your numbers. I didn't talk about weight loss. I didn't talk about anything else. I just talked about, do you know what a BMI is? Do you know what RMR is? Do you know how many calories there are per gram of protein? So it was just based on numbers. And I could see as I looked out, there were a lot of people that could definitely use my services. But when I teach every semester, whenever I do something like this, the very first question I ask, and when I saw Marty's slides, I said to him, I love this because this is me, is who here is on a diet? So who here is on a diet? You guys just had the definition about 10 minutes ago. We're all on a diet. It's just a question of what diet it is. And I will have patients say to me, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. You've never been on a diet in your life. I've done all of our programs just to see what they're like, just so I could say, oh, I know what it's like at 3:30 in the afternoon after you had a supplement at 12:30 and you think you're starving. I'll go through all that, but we're all on a diet. It's just a question of, is it low calorie? Is it high calorie? Is it junk food? Is it, I don't eat breakfast, I only have lunch and dinner? Is it, I have to have a glass of wine every night? What diet is it? So, Dennis came to me after hearing my speech, and he came for the free analysis. And when I went through those numbers, and I don't know if you all use a scale that will give people their fat percentage, between the fat percentage and the BMR, those numbers are golden. Those numbers are the best talking point to start with. So if you don't have it, get it. And when someone sees that their fat percentage is 35 higher, or all of a sudden they do the math and I'm half fat, I'm 50% fat, then right away they're starting to get into the zone. They're a little bit into it when they walk in the door, they're fully engaged when they see those numbers. So these were the stats for Dennis. 5'7", 195.5 pounds, fat percentage of 35.7, BMR of 1738, RMR of 1901, had hyperlipidemia, abdominal adiposity, and a high fat percentage. All right. So Dennis knew he needed to lose weight, but he wasn't quite sure how to do it or how to do it successfully. Dennis wanted to retire in 2 years. He was focused on this. And in his department, that was the joke. Dennis was always retiring. And then a project would come up, and he'd say, okay, after this project. So he was putting off retirement for a lot of reasons. And he finally told me one of them was he was afraid that he was going to be one of those fat, older, tired guys. And once he retired, it was just going to get worse. So he was preparing for this retirement, and part of it was getting healthy and losing weight. Dennis had a job that involved a lot of travel, and usually it was overseas travel. He would be going to different parts of the world. He was going to Sweden quite a bit, and a lot of the times, it was a last-minute travel plan. He would have frequent breakfast, lunch, and dinner meetings. All right. His company had an on-site cafeteria, complimentary meals. Why do you want to spend money on a supplement when you can go and think you're being healthy and having a yogurt and fruit or something like that? So these were some of his barriers to starting that diet or being successful on that diet. And it was something that he communicated to me and I was able to work with. Because I had been on site at this location, I had the extra advantage of being able to talk to the manager of the restaurant and asking him if he would be open to tweaking some menu items. If they had a chicken dish, if they could put a portion aside without any dressing on it. So we went through things, and they were very much open to it. So that was a big advantage. So I knew what was on the menu, and I could help Dennis a little bit more. In the past, Dennis had done Weight Watchers, Atkins, Jenny Craig. All right. Of course, he had some weight loss. It was usually limited. Like most of our patients or our clients, he hit a goal. He thought he knew everything. He was now a nutrition expert, and he never had to come back and see somebody. He could do this. He was never going up in weight again. And then he became a client. So what I find with a lot of these patients is that they're not sure, they're still thinking points. They'll come to me and say, but how many points do I have to have? And you have to retrain them. And that's a challenge in and of itself. Again, going back to communication. So the self-reported barriers to success. Travel, often last minute. He had to pick up and go. So he didn't have the luxury of being able to send food ahead or pack things. The free food at work. Who's not tempted? It's sitting right out there right now. I did go for one of the bars, although that croissant looked very good. Fear of how others will relate to him during his eating at work. He worked in a company that did big machinery. So he would say to me, I can't be sitting with 8 other guys and have a salad. I just can't do that. If we're having steak, I can't not have a beer. They won't take me seriously. Here I'm trying to get their business, and I have to eat like they eat, so that old peer pressure doesn't go away. But I would give him ideas. Sometimes it involves little white lies. Sometimes you have to say, tell them that you had a really big lunch and, you just want to have something light, or work around it, find another way to do it. Or you can have steak, but you don't have to have the whole 16 ounces, which goes back to us not wanting to waste food and our moms yelling at us when we did. All right. And then finally, he said, diets don't work for me. I am sure you have all heard this. What's your answer to diets don't work for me? Somebody. Yes. So many different things. What I always say to a patient is, as we get to know each other better, it might not be that the diet's not working for you, it's that you're not working for the diet. And it makes them think. They might not like me that minute, but it makes them think. And then, of course, there is never any time for exercise. I've had patients who tell me this, and we're in a 3-story building, and I'll say, really? Come on. And we'll walk up and down the stairs as we're having our visit. I have a patient that brought her sneakers one day, and she said, let's walk around the parking lot. It's the only time she can get in 15 minutes of walking. So take your cell phone in case you need to call 911, but walk around the parking lot. So you have to be realistic. You have to be flexible. All right? And that's where I'm going with this. Well, those patients in the beginning who would say to me, I can't afford to do 12 weeks, 6 weeks. A very low-calorie diet just won't work for me. I can't not eat. I would say, okay, well, let's work with this. I might say, okay, why don't you try Jumpstart and do a low-calorie meal? Let's concentrate on 3 meals a day and have one meal where you're having 550 calories, let's say. You're having 3 supplements or 4 supplements a day. And I always say baby steps to your goal. And that's exactly what I did with Dennis. He was resistant in the beginning to even starting anything because of all those barriers and the fact that he had failed before. All right. So when he was traveling, what we did was we put him on a 1,500 calorie diet. He used 1 meal replacement every day for breakfast. It was very easy for him to get in that meal replacement at breakfast because, like today, no one's really watching what you're doing. He didn't have to worry about that. And it was an easy way to control his intake during that 1 meal. Then when he was home, he did a low-calorie diet. He wanted to concentrate on learning for 1 meal a day the right way to eat. And he would do it at work, when you're outside and you don't have control over what it is that's being made and how it's being made and the portions. And he would do it at home. And of course, diarying, we keep diary and we would go from there. So, being flexible, being realistic, led to success for Dennis. 6 months later, his weight, 159.5, BMI, healthy, fat percentage, 21.8, no medications, nothing. He did it himself. So, Dennis finally retired. He sold his house. He went into a 55 and older community. He takes walks daily with his wife. He also works out with a trainer, something he never ever thought he could do. His current weight is 158. So, communication. The question said to him, why do you feel that you had success with this weight loss plan where you hadn't in the past? And he said it was realistic. It gave him flexibility, which his lifestyle demanded, so he could succeed. Now he can't wait to run around with his grandchildren that are on the way, twins. And he wants to be the cool granddad at the park. And this was a guy who would come in, his posture would be a little bit, he didn't want anyone to look at him. You could see that. The colors he would wear would be drab. He did not want to call any attention to himself. By the end, he was sporting a new haircut, tucking his shirt in, pointing things out, like I went to Lord & Taylor, do you see these pants? Instead of pleats in the front, it'd be a flat front, like all these little things, and he was extremely proud of this, and you could see that he felt that he really did succeed, and it was realistic, and something that he could maintain for the rest of his life. So, I will be around afterwards through the whole week if you need to ask me any questions, but now I'm going to hand it back over to Marty to finish. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen.